Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Russia is doubling down on its brutal attack of Ukraine, once again raining missiles on the capital city. This time, the strikes came when the UN Secretary General was visiting the area. The Kremlin it didn't stop there. Russia then pounded targets all over Ukraine.
Russian forces also continue to slaughter civilians. U.S. intelligence reports soldiers executing Ukrainian citizens who were trying to surrender, along with killing, torturing, and raping women and girls. Brody Carter brings us the latest in this escalating war.
Ukraine has become an epicenter of unbearable heartache and pain as Russians maintain their all-out assault on multiple fronts. Fires and rubbled buildings riddle the landscape of Kyiv after Russian bombs rocked Ukraine's capital once again. Sprawling violence left several people killed or wounded in Mariupol as the Russians push on in several cities.
The worst of crimes is war itself.
The fresh bombardment of Kyiv happened as the UN Secretary General was touring the country's devastation outside the capital. Here at home, the president promising more action.
We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains.
President Biden hopes to sell the wealth of Russian oligarchs to help Ukraine in its war with Russia. He's also asking Congress for $33 billion for military, economic, and humanitarian aid.
The cost of this fight is not cheap. But caving to aggression is going to be more costly if we allow it to happen.
As America seeks to strain Russian power, fears are growing that Russia's war on Ukraine could spread beyond the border, either by crossing into NATO countries or through cyber warfare. They've already cut off gas and oil to Bulgaria and Poland. President Putin pointed to the size and power of his nuclear arsenal Wednesday. Putin's renewed threats come after accusing the U.S. of leading a proxy war against Russia, supplying weapons to Ukraine to weaken Russia's military.
We're not attacking Russia. We're helping Ukraine defend itself against Russian aggression.
U.S. intel has credible information reporting one of the darkest chapters of this war. Russian forces executing Ukrainian civilians who were trying to surrender near Donetsk. And the bodies of women and girls showed signs of torture and sexual violence. Other barbarities include the destruction of Mission Eurasia last month. The missionary headquarters near Kyiv was destroyed by Russian tanks while trying to help Ukrainian refugees flee the war. The nonprofit said after the Russians destroyed their building, Russian troops threw any remaining stockpiles of Bibles and Christian books from our warehouse on the ground and burned them. The war has now claimed the life of an American, 22-year-old Willie Joseph Cancel, who died fighting with Ukrainian forces. He leaves behind his wife and young son. All of this as the constant Russian attacks have driven more and more Ukrainians out of their own homes and cities. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Well, as Ukrainians flee their homes, CBN's Orphans Promise is providing them with the food they need to survive. In one area, they're doing it with a unique outreach.
Here is a great example of the power of one. Shoni here is a regular Roma citizen, and he cares for his family. He is hardworking, and he had the idea, seeing all of these refugees fleeing to his Roma village and asking for food and being hungry. People who came after weeks of literally eating melted snow coming from Mariupol and Melitopol. Many of them came here because they had some relatives here, but the relatives themselves were not in the position to really help them. And so Shoni had an idea. Somebody gave this big pot here, and they've used it before in the camps. He's been a part of Orphans Promise partnership with the local church for years, volunteering, helping, working. And he had an idea about using this pot that was used in the camps, reaching out thousands of kids every summer, to now cook for the refugees and for other hungry people who are here in the village. So once a week there is a feast here, and it's been happening since the beginning of the war. Almost 1,000 people will be fed today with this pot. And it costs about $500 to make this happen because they do need to buy meat. It has vegetables. The vegetables are taken from the seed project that we have been working with this church for the past 12 years. And they have them in storage. It's potatoes and carrots and other root vegetables that go into this pot. And then it cooks. There will be lines of kids here who are coming with pots to bring food back to their families. But this is the outreach that this church is doing now to feed all of these hungry people. And they reach to them with their food, and then they reach their hearts, they pray for them, and they introduce them to Jesus Christ. And that's one man's idea, who is our hero today, who organized people, who prayed to God. You know, we stepped in, the church stepped in, people stepped in to make this happen. So thank you also for being a part of it and seeing the power of one.
Well, those are miracles, little mini miracles happening throughout Ukraine. If we get the map up, we'll show you all the different places where Orphans Promise has ongoing work. These aren't brand new centers. Orphans Promise has been in Ukraine for over 20 years. And so we are taking existing staff, existing facilities, and now putting extra effort into providing relief. And whether it's as small as how can we provide hot meals in the back of this facility to the people in need, to how do we have a full warehouse of food on the other side of the border in Poland, and how can we ship that food into all those different places you just saw. It's all made possible because people like you care enough to give, to say, yes, let's be there for them. Let's be there for them in their time of need. If you want to contribute, all you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000. Just say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of a check. You can text OB Crisis to 71777, or you can go to cbn.com. Either way, do it now. Let's help those people in need, and they have a very present need. Call us, 1-800-700-7000. In other news, President Biden is taking a major political hit here at home, this time over a shrinking economy. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN Newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, as you said, the president's message about the strong economy has run into a serious roadblock as the economy shrank unexpectedly in the first quarter at an annual rate of 1.4%. That is according to the government's estimate. It is the first time the economy has contracted in 2 years. Some analysts say the underlying economy is still doing well, at least for now, while others believe a recession is coming, possibly later this year or in 2023. The economy, including inflation, is the top issue for voters going into this year's midterm elections. I want to turn now to Israel, where violence erupted on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem early today, the last Friday of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan. Masked men and others hurled rocks and firecrackers from inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound towards the gate leading to the Western Wall. Israeli police clashed with the stone throwers, who also waved Hamas flags. Today's clashes were the latest in the waves of violence that have rocked the holy site over the last few weeks. Just before Holocaust Remembrance Day this week, Muslims gathered on the Mount chanting an Islamic battle cry to kill the Jews. This year's Holocaust Remembrance Day marked 77 years since the end of World War II. And as CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell shows us, sadly, it comes at a time of growing anti-Semitism in the world.
Sirens sounded for 2 minutes as Israel came to a standstill Thursday in memory of the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust. Wednesday at Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett began the national commemoration.
My brothers and sisters, the Holocaust is an unprecedented event in human history. I take the trouble to say this because as the years go by, there is more and more discourse in the world that compares other difficult events to the Holocaust. But no, even the most difficult wars today are not the Holocaust and are not comparable to the Holocaust.
Even with a history of attempted genocides, he went on to explain how this was different.
Never, in any place or during any time, has one people acted to destroy another in such a planned, systematic, and indifferent way, from a place of absolute ideology and not out of utilitarianism. The Nazis did not kill Jews to take their jobs or their homes. The Nazis sought to hunt all Jews and exterminate every last one of them.
Bennett said anti-Semitism, which has been around for thousands of years, is still alive today.
Whenever we are tempted to believe that we have entered a new, liberal, modern era in which people no longer hold on to Jew hatred, reality awakens us to the truth.
A new report showed a sharp increase in the number of anti-Semitic incidents from 2020 to 2021 in the largest Jewish populations outside Israel. Bennett noted the Jewish people had been in exile for nearly 2,000 years when the Holocaust took place.
The Jewish people can live in the diaspora and dream about Jerusalem, but eventually the genuine and natural existence of our people can only truly take place by our physical presence in our original homeland, here in the land of Israel. Building this homeland is an obligation, but also an enormous privilege for all of us.
Statistics indicate about 165,000 Holocaust survivors live in Israel, and 273 are newcomers who fled the ongoing war in Ukraine. Worldwide at the end of 2020, there were 15.2 million Jews, similar to the global Jewish population in 1939, just before the outbreak of World War II. Bennett, whose government is in jeopardy, concluded by urging the country to stick together so that no external enemy could defeat it. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
May we never forget. Gordon?
Yes, may we never forget, and may we say never again. But in saying that, let's recognize what's happening in the world today. Anti-Semitism is on the rise around the world. And don't think the U.S. is somehow exempt from it. When you look at the hate crimes, and the FBI has to keep records now of hate crimes, the religious hate crimes, far and away, hate crimes targeted at synagogues, targeted at Jews, far outstrip any other hate crime that they keep records on. You can't explain this outside of a spiritual cause. The rabbis say there's a Haman every single generation, and it just seems to be on the rise again. I shake my head and go, how in the world can this happen? Outside of a spiritual explanation that there's an enemy of the people of God, and he realizes that if he can exterminate them, then somehow or other he gets more time here on earth. Without that kind of view, you can't explain this. But still, as Christians, we should stand against it and say, no, never again. Let us never have this kind of slaughter. Let us never do this. Let us love Israel. Let us support Israel. Let us support the Jewish people.